Hey, all, welcome, college baseball fans. I am Monty. With me is Micah. Jake is a scratch, and Nick is coming. Micah, how are you doing after a action-packed weekend of ACC baseball? A lot of it affected by weather. How'd you feel about it?
I'm great. It was Saturday. I was in a lot of pain. Watching that Virginia. Like, I don't know how teams handle losing non-conference games. I almost unranked Virginia. I was that upset, Monty. If I'm just being honest here, and the worst part is at least if on Friday they would have lost it, it would have been Leaf Bigelow, the former ETSU guy, getting the win and all that good stuff. But
Did, did you
sadly.
did Nick? Did you just say test?
I think Nick did say
Yeah.
test in the middle of the show, Nick.
Oh, we're live. Shoot.
You're late. Yeah,
I didn't know you guys were live.
Yes, we
My
are
bad.
live. Welcome, Nick. How are you? We just started.
Well, the mic, I got the camera to work on my laptop, but the microphone is still not working.
Well, we can hear you.
It's okay. Nick
That's
is
good
Nick is acting exactly
I'm on
like
my
his
phone again, so.
Well, you're acting exactly like your Winston-Salem brethren that have been sleepwalking pretty much all season and then are starting to slowly wake up as conference play rolls along. So very convenient that you just got to do the same thing and be a little late to the start of the season. In this case, start of the show.
Micah, I really don't need your sass tonight. Okay, buddy?
I was going to say, Micah seems like nothing but sass, so.
Yeah.
All right. So, we're pretty much getting started, Nick. Jake is, I guess, not joining us. As he did say he was a scratch. He had just gotten off work. So, we're going to move right along into the show. Let me add up our first series as we head towards ACC play for most of the conference. But first, we're talking the University of North Carolina. They swept the weekend, kind of business as usual, taking care of business against Princeton. They also swept their two midweek games against VCU and I can't remember who the other one was. Longwood. So they're 5-0. They've quietly won 5 in a row. Nothing to scream about. But Folger Boaz was pretty fantastic on Friday night. 7 innings in his third career start. 9 strikeouts, 106 pitches. Nick, what were your thoughts on the Tar Heels?
Kind of just what you said. Nothing really to scream about. Last week they lost 2 of 3 to ECU, and I think they needed this type of series where they scored double-digit runs, basically won almost every game by double digits. I think it's just kind of getting back on track, trying to find themselves who they really are. But I liked how they handled this series in the midweeks. Like you said, quietly won 5 games, quietly one of the hotter teams in the ACC. So it was pretty impressive for the Heels.
Yeah. It's just they very quietly went about their business, especially since I think they had noon starts all the way through. So they were very quickly getting these games done. Micah, what are your thoughts on the Tar Heels?
I watched way too much of that Friday game. Monty, Nick, and anyone that's in our ACC group chat received basically a play-by-play throughout that game, at least for the first 2 innings, because, that was one of the strangest games I've ever watched. So Princeton steals home to take a 1-0 lead in the first inning, and I'm like, what in the world is going on here? And then we've got dropped pop flies. We've got just complete lack of communication between the team and the pitcher and the catcher, and just overall very insane first inning where you see UNC score 11 runs. But that was what I think was most impressive was they jumped out and they kind of just put cruise control on and just took care of business. Obviously, Folger Boaz had to settle down after a little bit of a shaky first inning. He honestly would have gotten out of it if it weren't for the fact that it was just kind of a bonehead fall asleep type moment for the catcher, the guy at third to score in that first inning for Princeton. But overall, it was just a take care of business, nice little way to kind of roll into conference play.
Yeah, and Shea Sprague, the Elon transfer, got his first start of the year, kind of taking the spot of Ben Peterson in that Saturday role. Jason DeCaro, I believe, did he start the first? I think he started the first Sunday. I don't know. They've been rotating in a ton of freshman arms in that Sunday and midweek roles, and I'm having trouble keeping track of which ones are starting on the midweek and which ones are starting the weekend. But you got to solid 4 inning performances from both of them. But Princeton's not exactly the class of the Ivy League. I'd be a lot more impressed if they'd been playing, a Columbia or a Penn. But you can only beat who's in front of you.
I do have a question for you guys. So ECU obviously struggled this week, getting walked off by Old Dominion in the midweek. And, they won 2 out of 3, but lost to a pretty bad Southeast Louisiana team. Does that hurt North Carolina a lot, considering that we thought ECU was, better than them? Or are we still on the same wavelength as we were before with Carolina?
For me, it's so early in the season, I don't think you can put too much into results. I was a little alarmed by how little the UNC scored in that series against ECU, so I'm curious to see how they do once they get into conference play against some of the better pitchers. So it's hard to say. ECU's not as good as we thought, but their pitching's still decent. The midweek wasn't one of their top 2 starters, and then the SLU game was their 3rd starter, so it's hard to say, but that the 2 pitchers that ECU has, 1-2, pitched really well against UNC.
Yeah, I think for me, I just take away that ECU won't be a top 8. That's kind of all I took away from it. I think, with North Carolina, obviously I don't want to say it's their Super Bowl. I always hate that saying, but they're going to be up for that series where, obviously it's a little bit more of a sleepy time when you go to Old Dominion in a midweek, and then Southeast Louisiana, Purdue, and Cal State Fullerton come to town. And, obviously ECU looks pretty good throughout the weekend, especially on that Friday against Purdue. So I'm not putting too much into North Carolina. And to be honest, it's kind of exactly what I thought. I think they're a top 20 team, but I don't know if I think they're a top 10 team. So it's kind of like losing that series to ECU doesn't change that for me.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? Did you think it hurts them, Nick?
For a second I did, but you can't really do a whole lot of transitive property, especially when it comes to college baseball. It's really, really hard to keep track of that. And not only when you do keep track of that, results are always going to be different at week in, week out, no matter who you play. Some teams have good days. Some teams have bad days. That's just the beauty of college baseball. So I'm not putting too much weight on it now that I've kind of digested it over the weekend. But yeah, I think Micah hit the nail on the head. They might creep into the top 10 throughout the season, depending if other teams fall, but they will always be right there.
Yep. Yeah. Other things to notice, Luke Stevenson hit his first 2 home runs of his collegiate career, and Vance Honeycutt remains hot. He had his 6th home run of the year, 5 RBIs, and he's stealing bases at a high clip. So he's pretty close to back. I know the average isn't as high as you might like it to be, but he's raking for power and driving in runs and stealing bases. So that's always a good sign. Moving along to Nick's NC State Wolfpack. They had a 4-game series against the Towson Tigers. Is it the Tigers? They swept through it with ease. The Friday game was a little interesting, but after that, they were 7-inning games because of the run rule. So another kind of similar thing for me as UNC, it was kind of business as usual for NC State. I think there were some positives, but there's still some things that are probably a little spooky, a little concerning for NC State, but the offense is hitting. And Nick, since these are your boys, I'll head back to you. What are your thoughts on this NC State baseball team?
So I'm going to start with the Friday game. Sam pitched really well and was very impressive, but once again, the bullpen got very shaky and we needed a walk-off to win that game. So there are still
Yeah, I think they waited. I think Avent waited a little bit too long to go to Jacob Duden, who seems to be really good. But by the time he came in, there wasn't much he could do to. He got. I mean, he immediately. I think they'd already blown the save by then. He gave up the. He got a double play ball, and that ended the inning. But yeah, I would have brought him in to get the save. But continue. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. The starting pitching overall was really, really good. That's kind of what we needed and a big improvement from last season. And, even to the start of this season, some of the guys were a little shaky out the gate, but this series really showed that they kind of got it down a little bit. I mean, they went the distance. Sam went 84 pitches. Dom went 104, which is really impressive. Like you said, everyone was hitting well. Alec, Eli, they were doing great all weekend. The home run ball came out the gate, which was awesome, even in the midweek too. The midweek we played Queens, and they were just hitting bombs left and right. Who I'm really impressed with and who actually went the distance and who I thought probably should have been taken out earlier, but, he stuck with it, was Ryan Moran. State had a pretty good lead, and he was doing really well. I would have pulled him a little bit earlier. Probably would have let him finish the fourth or the fifth inning and just be done with it. But we kept him going. He gave up a couple of hits towards the end. But overall, I was really impressed. The starting pitching was clicking, and the bats were clicking. But we didn't get to see a whole lot of relief pitching blow anything except in game one because, like you said, they mercy ruled the next 3 games. So I'm pretty impressed with what I saw.
Yeah, I thought they were going to cruise to the game 1 victory as well, but then the bullpen kind of made things interesting. But I think Jacob Duden's a really good pitcher, and I think he might be settling into one of those late inning roles. I think he came in later in the series and got a save somewhere. He must have pitched. Yeah, I've gotten my notes that he's got a save, but that can't be right because none of the other games would have qualified for a save, so I'm not sure where that came from. But he's had a really good start to the year, to his collegiate campaign. But, yeah, Micah, what are your thoughts on this NC State team? Do you believe?
I am taking 0 from this weekend series. I mean, just to be transparent, obviously, Towson's not good. Like, they're not. From what we've seen so far this year, here's your fun fact of the weekend, or of the series, I guess. NC State is the only team not named Bucknell in a series so far, or multiple games, I should say, against the second highest amount of runs given up against this Towson team. FAU held them to 3 runs in 3 games. Wofford held them to 12 runs. Obviously, there's 13 runs scored here in this 4. Was this originally a 3-game series, by the way, and they just added a 4th because of weather, or was it always a 4th?
No,
I think it was always a 4 to make up for the Hawaii mid-game or the lack of a midweek.
They didn't have the midweek after the
That's what I'm saying.
Series.
They added a 4th game like a week ago to this.
Oh.
After the Hawaii thing. Right?
Good question. I don't know if that was already pre-planned or they decided to do it.
I just don't remember seeing this as a 4-game series. Maybe it was. I don't know. But regardless, I mean, at the end of the day, they took care of business, right? I mean, the resilience to walk off the Friday game is obviously a positive. Logan Whitaker was lights out. That was great to see, I think, if you're an NC State fan. Jacob Cozart's getting hot. That's huge for the Pack. So, I mean, there's a lot of positives you can take from it. Personally, I'm just like, I'm proud of NC State for taking care of business, but I mean, I am not holding any stock into a 4-game sweep of Towson.
Yeah, I think you can be pleased with results, but not put too much stock into it. Like you did what you're supposed to do, and you can see signs of good stuff going ahead, but it doesn't necessarily mean, hey, NC State means NC State's going to be like a top 20 team necessarily. We still need to see.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can take away. I think if I'm going to take anything away from this is that the starting pitching from start to finish was really, really good. And that's something we hadn't seen from every guy in a series yet. So If I'm taking anything positive out of this, it's the starting pitching.
And ACC Player of the Week, Alex Makarovich.
Let's go. Well deserved.
Yep, 7 of 18 for he had his 5th home run, had 3 doubles, 9 RBIs. So big day for him. And one of my personal favorites, Garrett Pennington, getting his first NC State home run. He's been racking up the doubles, but that was his first home run of the year. So good for NC State. They are 9-2 on the year now. So moving along to our Duke Blue Devils, the number 9 team in the country. They've got a top 10 matchup coming up this weekend as we start ACC play. We'll get into that later. But Duke takes its first loss of the year on Saturday to Akron 4-3. Santucci, Jonathan Santucci continues to be just absolutely sensational. He's the ACC pitcher of the week after a 6-inning, 14 strikeout, 1-hit performance, only 82 pitches as Duke cruised to the 6-0 win. We got to see our boy Kyle Johnson make his debut start on the mound on Sunday for 4 shutout innings. And their offense, their guys are still hitting, albeit on Saturday they couldn't quite muster enough runs to beat Akron. Micah, what are your thoughts on this Duke team? That you worried about them at all for that loss against Akron?
No, but I mean, is there any concern? Because I mean, I guess I it's not the fact they lost, if I'm being honest. I know this might sound insane, but it's more the fact that there wasn't a lot of offensive output. Like I know that they won 6-0, they won 7-2, but like I don't know. We've seen their ability to hit, and Akron's been hit around a lot this year. And that's where a little bit of this is kind of concerning. Like, and they kind of failed to get the big hit when they needed to against Akron. I mean, that 6th inning kind of got out of hand. You know, Healy came in to start that inning, and he's only responsible for the 1 earned run, and it kind of fell in the bullpen from there. But, you know, it was still, again, kind of something that, just was a little concerning, if you ask me, in terms of just the offensive output. I'm not going to say they can't hit, right? We're not going to say that. But I don't know about you, but my optimism towards this offense for Duke was, I almost had no doubt anymore. And now it's kind of creeped back in to where, I mean, hit like this against Wake this weekend. I mean, I'm not making my prediction yet, but I don't think you're going to win that series if you fail to hit the way they did this past weekend against Akron.
Yeah, and to be honest, some of it might just be that we're itching for big time matchups, and we're just trying to find some some weaknesses in teams. But they could be a valid concern. We're going to find out very quickly, right? Nick, what are your thoughts on Duke? Are you feeling the kind of same Micah as that? There's something to be concerned about, or is this just kind of just the way things go?
I think it's kind of just the way things go. I'm not going to put too much stock into it. Teams are trying to find themselves in these early series, and they're going to find out real quick. Everyone is come this weekend. Kyle Johnson was very, very impressive. I think he was my player of the week for this Duke team. I mean, I thought he did really, really well, only giving up 3 hits on 0 runs. So I think that was great. But you can't put a whole lot in it. It's kind of like, approaching like an all-star break, or you're kind of like in the middle of whatever in your season or something where, okay, let's get the show on the road. It's just a rough patch, not necessarily a rough patch, but you're just kind of bored and waiting. It's like you're in purgatory a little bit. So I'm not putting too much stock into Duke not blowing out Akron. I think it's just, all right, let's get this thing going.
And I want to add something quickly on Akron. Again, I grew up in Northeast Ohio. They didn't have baseball when I was growing up. They've just re-added the program recently. And, that program is really being invested by their athletic director. Gotten to meet him personally, really great guy. But that athletic department is really kind of not putting a full focus on baseball, right? But from a max standpoint, there is an investment in baseball there. They have a new head coach who fully believes in this program, is really trying to, they're playing hard. That's the one thing we've seen from Akron is they don't care about the results per se. They want you to see progress. So obviously this is a huge step for them. So just to ease some of the Duke fans' minds, but going back quickly to the hitting thing, my biggest concern, honestly, Monty, is maybe not even the ability to hit. It's the fact that they're relying a lot on the home run ball.
Yeah.
To kind of do it. It kind of reminds me of Wake last year. They relied on the home run ball. They get to Omaha, can't get it out of the park, and they're not really piecing together those singles and doubles, and that you kind of need to dip and dunk a little bit to win in Omaha. And again, I'm nitpicking Duke as a national champion type quality team, not like, oh, Duke stinks. Is Duke the caliber of a team that can win it all at the end of the year? And that's where that question mark comes from, because they are relying a lot on that home run ball.
Yeah, and something that also could be a little concerning is Fran O'Shell struggled again. James Talon has struggled, but that's been mitigated by the 10 other guys in the bullpen who have been fantastic, guys who have stepped up, like Josh Allen, Gabriel Nard, guys like that. Obviously, Kyle Johnson, but Charlie Bielenson, obviously, coming out and getting, I think, his 5th save in that. I think he went 3 innings in that game 3 to get his 5th save of the year and was absolutely lights out. So, we're being really nitpicky on Duke, I think, but that's because our expectations for this team is so high as in recent years. I think if it was a couple of years ago, we're thinking, man, Duke's awesome. This is great. We'd have no notes. So excited to see them up against Wake Forest this weekend. We'll talk a little bit more about that later as we move right along. Oh, before we move along, just Santucci stats: 17 innings, no earned runs, 31 strikeouts. Having an insane year. I think I made the joke earlier.
I can't wait for Friday.
Yeah, I made a joke earlier that he might be the heir apparent to Rhett Lauder, not Josh Hartle, as the ACC's premier pitcher. But we'll find out Friday. It's going to be electric. Moving on to the Micah's Virginia Tech Hokies. Just kidding. Virginia Tech took care of business in Game 1 and Game 2 very quietly. Nothing super impressive. Game 3, they wasted a pretty good Griffin Stieg start and ended up losing that game. I believe Garrett Michelle got injured. I don't know what exactly happened, but he was not in the lineup in either Game 2 or Game 3. They had freshman Ethan Gibson starting at first base. I have not had a chance to figure out what might have gone wrong and how long he might be out, but that's a big loss if he's out beyond this weekend. He's a big piece for them. I'm getting word in the comments that it's a hand or wrist. Thank you, Alex. So that's a bit of a alarming situation. But Brett Renfro, much like Folger Boaz for North Carolina, another dazzling Friday night start. So the 2 freshmen who are starting on Friday nights have continued to impress. And Virginia Tech pitching overall it seems to be more improved from last year. But when they hold somebody to 4 runs, they got to find ways to win, right, Micah?
I think the most frustrating part was they didn't even give up. Like, the pitching was not the problem. I mean, 2 of them are unearned. Then they walked in the 3rd run, and then the 4th one is a sac fly. I mean, obviously the walks kind of fall on the pitching staff, right? But the first 2 runs of the game are on throwing errors. So it's really just sloppy play defensively. And I mean, if you're a Virginia Tech fan, I think that it'd be really great and really exciting, to know that if you just clean up the defense, this is a pretty good pitching staff. Like, the bullpen is having some walkage, like Alex just, I think you put that up there, Monty, so thank you. But like, Alex, kudos to you, Alex. You kind of stole the words out of my mouth. Like, there's some concerns with the bullpen. There's still some issues walking people, but the starting pitching has been great. Obviously, as a Virginia fan here, I would argue the starting pitching for Virginia Tech's been better than what Virginia's had so far this year. So that's obviously a huge promising thing if you're a Hokies fan. And then you talk about, again, I think you just clean up the defensively. You swept Stony Brook, a team that, according to my coaching staff at ETSU, is a very scrappy, talented team that will make some noise in the CAA this year. So take that with a grain of salt if you'd like. But, I do think that it's just, at the end of the day, it's a sloppy Sunday. It kind of got away from them. And, and honestly, I wish they would have been able to knock in that final run in the 9th. But, I mean, they showed fight in the 9th inning. I mean, you score 2 of your runs. You have a chance to hopefully knock in another one when you had 1st and 2nd there. Unfortunately, you didn't drive it in. But, hey, I mean, overall, all things considered, it's a good weekend going into ACC play. Not great, but good.
Yeah, before I go to Nick, I'll break down some of the stats here for your three starters. All three guys have made three starts. Brett Renfro has a 1.69 ERA in 16 innings with a 19 strikeout to 3 walk ratio. Wyatt Parliament has a 3.86 ERA in 14 innings with 11 strikeouts to 3 walks. And Griffin Stieg, who has had good outings back-to-back after a rough opening one, he's got a 3.55 ERA in 12.2 innings pitched with a 12 strikeout to 4 walk ratio. So much, much better, in the early goings compared to what they had last season. So, Nick, what are your thoughts on this Virginia Tech baseball team?
They're quietly a good club. I think they should have won that third game. They're not ranked nationally. I think they're kind of, in the mid-tier of our ACC power rankings, maybe, second half of our ACC power rankings. But if you just quietly win your series, you could end up like that Duke team from last year, where Micah and I remember we kept saying how Duke will never get swept, but they'll never sweep anybody until they did halfway through, and then they just went on this insane run. So if Virginia Tech can quietly put things together and still win games, they could be a very dangerous team sooner rather than later become ACC play. So they're definitely a team to keep an eye out on. They're just hanging around. I think they're off to a better start than they were last season too.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's funny they almost sweep this series, and that's with Carson DiMartini going 0 for 11 with a walk, and Garrett Michelle being hurt for 2 games and not playing. So two of your 2 scariest bats, with all respect to Cannizzaro, Micheletti, and Ben Watson, but Michelle and DiMartini being out to get that kind of production and almost sweep is still, it makes you pleased if you're a Virginia Tech fan.
Yeah.
So, all right, moving along to who we got next. Notre Dame, Micah. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish, who did they go down in your power rankings after a really wild sweep here?
No, they went up 1, but that's only because someone else fell. But that starting pitching line is
not great.
Yeah. Seeing Caden Spivey look human and not even human, he looked like, it was kind of like he was throwing batting practice, to be honest. Tennessee Tech can hit. I want to make that very clear. They are, that's that mid-major program that, I'd say that pitching's optional at Tennessee Tech, but they're not known for their pitching down there. But that type of starting pitching in the ACC is going to get you more losses than not. But let's try to be positive. We're changing my persona, Monty. This team can hit. We've seen it all year so far. Tennessee Tech's ballpark is not the easiest place to hit in. ETSU and Tennessee Tech have a nice history of going to play each other. So I'm very familiar with this ballpark. It's still funny if you look at Stadium Journey. If you go to Tennessee Tech's ballpark, at one point they were ranked the #1 college baseball stadium in America according to Stadium Journey. So they make sure you know that when you go there. It's really not anything to write home about, but it's got a nice atmosphere for a mid-major park. But besides the point, this was you swept, and you kind of we've all been with Notre Dame, right? We're all just kind of like, will they get one of the last spots to be in Charlotte? That's really the question mark we've had, or at least I've had most of the year for them, and I don't think anything got answered, obviously, this weekend. So good for them for overcoming such terrible pitching performances to start.
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, by the way, Caden Spivey, third start, he's got an 18 ERA, and Jackson Denny's in after 3 starts has a 15.58 ERA. So, not good. They're also not getting a whole ton of, shutdown innings. I mean, Burkholz has been okay at times, but he's got an ERA over 5. Nate Hartman's got a higher ERA. So, they've got to figure out the pitching here. But I think the lineup's going to hit. Now, they hit 15 home runs this weekend. Nobody hit more in the country in Division I level. They've hit 29 home runs this season. 15 doubles, 1 triple. They've scored 97 runs in 10 games. And keep in mind, they've done all this on the road, albeit against, you might see that as lesser competition, but still really impressive from their lineup. Nick, what are your thoughts?
That pitching, man, is I know. I think if you're Notre Dame, you're happy where you're at. You're 8-2. You're feeling pretty good going to conference play. I think you'll take it. As someone who also was debating on leaving them out or not when it comes to the ACC tournament in in Charlotte, I think you'll take what you got right now. I don't really have a whole lot. I mean, they got to figure out this pitching, man. They're not going to go far at all if they can't figure this thing out. I did put them as like teams I considered in my top 25, but in all seriousness, that's just more the record talking because that pitching's got to be figured out. But you'll take the bats. I'm very impressed with how many home runs NC State hit this week. It's shocking that, even Notre Dame outdid them in home runs. So their bats are definitely something to keep an eye on throughout ACC play.
Yeah, and they did this without one of their main sluggers in the lineup, and David Glancy. Again, not sure exactly what's happened to him, but he had 4 home runs coming into this series, didn't play in any of the games. But you got to love that Jack Penny finally got started. He hit 4 home runs over the weekend. Surprised he doesn't get a call for, ACC Player of the Week or Drew Burress, but no disrespect to Alex Makarovich. He's been on a hot tear. But Estevan Moreno had 3 home runs in a game on Saturday. Do you remember the other time he hit 3 home runs in a game, Micah?
No idea.
It was against Virginia last season.
Oh, that's right.
Yep. So, but they were back. They were behind in both game 2 and 3. Game 2, they were down 9-3, and in game 3, they were down 9-2. And they did get some really good stuff out of the bullpen. In game 2, Bennett Flynn and Ricky Reith combined for 7 shutout innings. And then in game 3, Jack Radell and Nate Hardman combined for 4 shutout innings. So they've got some pitchers that are producing. It's just the guys they expected are not exactly producing. So Notre Dame, an interesting team. The lineup is a lot better than I thought it would be. I know, you got to take it with a grain of salt with these non-conference matchups, but I've been rather impressed with their lineup. The pitching is about where I thought they'd be.
Love the shout out to Ricky Reith, by the way, Kingsport Axeman Ricky Reith this summer. So
yeah, well, I think there was another outing last week against FAU where I thought he had a really good outing. So he's probably going to be getting more innings. So hopefully he can keep it up. But yeah, Jackson Denny's, Caden Spivey, time to forget about this past weekend and look forward to next weekend and trying to stop the Virginia Tech Hokies.
Monty, sorry, before you can stay on this off the slide if you want. I'm just curious. I didn't get a chance to watch the Friday game. Why did Bedford only go 3 innings? Was there a reason for that?
That was my question too.
Bedford hasn't gone any longer than 3 innings.
So
He's normally their Sunday
opener. Is that what we're kind of going?
It basically feels like Notre Dame is just taking the Duke philosophy because Bedford was their Sunday guy and was only pitching like 3 innings as an opener. But yeah, I'm not entirely
That's
sure.
Why I was confused. I thought he was the Sunday guy because Spivey was the Friday guy last weekend.
Right.
2 weekends,
so I'm not
one or the other. So
I
that's
think he
why
was
I was
both.
like,
yeah.
Okay. Just didn't know if you had more insight on that than I did.
No, I'm not entirely sure because none of these games were streamable.
Shout out to the mid majors, baby.
So none of these games were on TV. I was stunned because I was getting the updates from Notre Dame throughout the day in the 2 games they were losing, and I stopped paying attention at a certain point, and I was stunned to find out they swept. So because I had saw they were down big in 2 games. So moving along to Boston College, who was on the road in the Commonwealth of Virginia this week for the Central Virginia Classic. They beat Richmond on Friday afternoon. They beat the Rain with a 7-2 win. They had a great start from John West. They've been looking for him to have one of those big starts. He finally did. He's been okay the other 2 outings, but this was his best so far. AJ Colarusso, who has been pretty good so far, had a bit of a bad one on Saturday at William & Mary. They went down 6-0, ended up coming back, and then just got flat out taken down at the Diamond. Shout out to the Diamond, right, Micah? On Sunday in their 10-1 loss there. They're the only team, I think, ACC team that did not hit a home run this weekend. I actually have BC as the 14th team in my power rankings. Nick, what are your thoughts on this Boston College baseball program?
Unfortunately, I don't see this BC team right now where they were last year, on the cusp of making the super regionals. The bats are not as strong as they used to be. The pitching is not as strong as it used to be. Cam Leary is still a dog. He's still awesome. But when you're going through a new coach and new transitioning over to a new era, it's kind of tough, especially when you didn't expect it happening, because usually when you're transitioning to a new era of a coach in any sport, it's usually when a coach gets fired and you're looking up. But the last coach was hired somewhere else, and things were already starting to look really good for Boston College. I don't think they're in danger of being a bottom 2. I think they still have some pretty good depth to make Charlotte. But we'll see. I'm a little concerned. I don't know if they're going to win the series against NC State next week. It's going to be a little tough for them. I'm a little concerned with Boston College.
Yeah, and I saw them on Sunday, and they've got some good players. But the other thing that surprised me is Barry Walsh was an important member of that team last year, and he's been kind of replaced in center field the last couple of games by Adam Magpok, who went 0 for 11 over the weekend with just a walk. So before Barry Walsh got an at bat, it sounds like Todd Donato is still trying to figure things out and figure out where he wants to put guys, but. Nick, what are your thoughts on this BC team? Are you with me that they're at the bottom? They're at the bottom of the ACC, or do you think they're closer where they were last year?
You want to talk to Nick again, or not, or me?
Did I say Nick or did I say Mike?
You said Nick. I'm like, you already talked to him. I mean,
yeah, I meant Micah.
Love to answer that again. Okay, Micah.
College lawyer over here.
My head definitely said Micah, but my voice said Nick. Sorry, Micah. I would like to hear your opinion, sir.
Well, as my new name, Nick, would like to say,
everyone's saying now.
So I think what's interesting is, again, and maybe I'm thinking too much into this, right? But last year, Boston College, I wouldn't say they're one of the most powerful teams in the conference, but they could hit with power, right?
Joe Vitrano was a monster.
Yeah. And like Todd Donato teams is very small ball. I think I've told this story before, so if I have, I'm sorry, but like, that program is kind of tailored after the Yankees of past era, not the Bronx Bomber Yankee era. They're very strict on their facial hair and how the two just overall play the game. I mean, they always steal bases. They're aggressive. They're a lot of bunts, a lot of slap ball hitters. I mean, like it was a big joke in the SoCon that Wofford was a softball team that was really, really good at baseball. But it's a little concerning, right? That they are having such problems with pitching. I mean, John West finally looked like the John West we expected. That was probably the biggest positive of the weekend. They've seen a lot of great relief from Tyler Mudd. I want to give him a huge shout out. He's been really good. He's got the best record of any pitcher. He's 2-0. He's also got a save. He's only allowed 1 earned run so far this year in 12 and 2/3 pitching. But it's There's obviously some concern, but again, my expectation for Boston College this year is kind of what we've seen. And Monty, you've informed me that this VCU team is a top 25 team, so I'm not going to put too much against Boston College for this top 25 VCU team. And he gives me a face, guys. I'll screenshot the group chat. I know he was kidding.
Did you say
but...
Did you say VCU? I thought you said BC. That's where I got confused.
No,
Okay.
VCU.
Yeah.
So like a 10-1 loss to a top 25 team at their awful ballpark where they were worried about getting tetanus. I mean, I don't really blame them.
I was there. So the VCU is a good mid-major team this year. I saw. I mean, I was obviously being a little facetious when I said they were a top 25 team. But you can't tell that through text. So Micah will blackmail me. But they've already got 3 Power 5 wins. They beat NC State once. They beat Maryland, and they've beaten Boston College now. They did lose to UNC in a midweek and NC State twice, but pretty good results for them. But it's hard to say. But it's hard to say too much right now this early. But BC just did not impress me too much this weekend when they should have been beaten up on teams.
All right, I agree. Yeah.
Moving along to the Virginia Cavaliers. Micah was devastated. So we were convinced on Friday they were going to lose. Evan Blanco had his best start of the year. Should have gone 6 innings. But unfortunately, I think an error cost him that 6th inning shutout innings. They shortly gave up 3 runs after that. And the offense couldn't really get going until Henry Godbout put the team on his back. He scored the tying run in the 9th, and then he drove in the walk-off single in the 9th to win it, to extend that non-conference streak to 38 games, where it was subsequently broken on Friday or Saturday with another bad start from Jack O'Connor. He left with it being, I think, 6-0. He only gave up 4 earned runs, but that's sad that I'm saying only 4 earned runs. But on the other hand, Jay Wolfhook on Sunday, 2nd straight appearance where he's looked really, really good after that first start opening weekend. That wasn't great. But Micah, it's time to grieve, buddy. The streak is dead.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, maybe I'm glad it's over because now I won't be so angry about losses. Because, again, at the end of the day, I mean,
you still will.
This was a series win, right? Let's try to be positive here about Virginia. Obviously, seeing Jay pitch the way he did was promising. And Monty, obviously, you weren't there on Sunday, so I can't ask necessarily if you can give me more insight, but. It felt like to me watching it live, Virginia kind of called off the dogs there late. UMass put up some late runs in a game that was kind of over. And you're obviously talking about a Sunday before a pretty big midweek this week against Penn State tomorrow, and obviously the start of conference play this weekend. It kind of felt like that 10-6 game really wasn't 10-6. So that was at least kind of promising on that front for Virginia, but there obviously is some cause for concern because not only did Virginia drop a game this weekend, but to be honest, their weekend in Jacksonville doesn't look as great as it did, less than a week ago. I mean, Iowa loses the series to Ole Miss. Auburn drops 1 in a 3-game set with UConn at home. It's Wichita State is still what we think, right? A pesky, maybe AAC team.
Well, Caden Favors had a complete game shutout after his 6 2/3 good innings against Virginia. So that makes me feel good.
Sure.
Yeah. But that's
definitely. I think it kind of eliminated my concern about Virginia hitting for a little while there.
Yeah.
But we'll see when we get into conference play. But what we've seen so far from the Virginia starting pitching staff. I mean, it might be time for Cullen McKay to make a weekend start. I mean, are we at that point, Monty? Because I kind of feel like that might be where we need to start looking.
Well, it's an interesting question because obviously Brian O'Connor loves having that stud in the midweek because he did all last year until exams with Connolly Early, which cracked me up because Connolly Early ended up making a bunch of All-American teams because people clearly saw the stats and didn't take into account all those games were against midweek competition. But that's a big reason why that streak was still going so long, because he had the stud of the midweek. I'm interested to see somebody like Owen Cody possibly get in the rotation. I asked Brian O'Connor about this in Jacksonville, and he was talking about, again, I think I brought this up last week, so I apologize if I'm saying it again, but, that crafty veteran, that knows how to get out of, get around lineups when you don't have your best stuff because you don't have the same amount of talent as some other guys. I'd love to see somebody like Owen Cody in there, but Bradley Hodges, we haven't seen him in a couple weeks. I'm not sure if he's aggravated an injury or not. We still haven't seen Joe Savino. The good news is Matthew Buchanan is back after the loss of his father. That was a really great moment in the VMI game, his first game back, and then his brother was on the other side. So, yeah, there's definitely some questions still to be figured out for the Virginia pitching staff. But, Micah, before I go to Nick, let me ask you this. If I told you before the season Virginia would be 10-1 and while Griff O'Farrell and Ethan Anderson combined to hit 232, would you have taken that?
I mean, yeah, I definitely would take it, but I'd also be like, why are they struggling 11 games in with this schedule? So that's the other, there's a devil's advocate to that. Like, yes, I would take 10-1 with that stat line, but that makes me really nervous about the start of ACC play because they need to get going because there is still question marks about this pitching staff, and maybe they just turn it on when the ACC play starts. But I have a feeling Virginia is going to need to outscore some ACC games this year, their opponents.
Yeah, I'm just still laughing how you started off trying to be positive, and it's just so hard with all the question marks.
Well, see,
Nick,
I think the problem is, again, and this is the world's worst thing, right? You put this expectation out there, right? We're judging Brian O'Connor on whether we can get this team back to Omaha. Like, if we're talking about NCAA tournament, this team is clearly an NCAA tournament team. Like, it would take a disaster for this team to miss the tournament, in my opinion. Like, I want to make that very clear. I'm not like, oh crap, this team is on the outside looking in. Like, I mean, I'm debating whether they should be hosting a regional. That's where this concern is like, is this a team that's hosting another regional? Because Monty, I want to hang out with you in June.
I also would like a regional close to home rather than having to travel extra far. Nick, what are your thoughts? Is there concerns for Virginia? Is not Nick? Did it again? Is Micah right to be concerned?
Yes and no. I mean, look, streaks come to an end. I know you guys aren't really harping on the streak coming to an end, but everything dies in the end. So it's okay. Everything's
took a
fine.
dark turn. Everything dies. I mean, everything you love will die.
What they've done throughout last season and the first quarter of this season was really impressive to win every non-conference game on your schedule. The pitching is a little concerning to me. The bats are okay, but last year we were talking about Wake's pitching and Virginia's pitching. Now it's, not really the same anymore when it comes to Virginia's pitching. I think maybe they're in a little of a Duke stage where, all right, let's get conference play going, but we'll see what happens. I mean, I think right now I could see there are 4 teams in the ACC right now that I could see going to Omaha where we sit right now, and Virginia is one of them. So I'm not banking too hard on one loss to UMass because the pitching was not that good that day.
Yeah. By the way, the Henrys continue to rake. Henry Godbout, I already talked about him. He's hitting .515 on the year with 8 extra base hits.
Can Henry Ford please get an NIL deal with Ford? Yeah, Henry Ford.
No, I want him to get an NIL deal with Chevy because that would be hilarious.
That actually would be so funny. Chevy should do that.
Hi, I'm Henry Ford, and you know what? You should not buy a Ford.
You should get a Chevy.
Mistake was wrong. Buy a Chevy.
That's a good point. Yeah, he hit his 3rd home run of the year, so the Henrys are doing okay. By the way, Godbout also leads the team in doubles, but he also leads the team with 11 walks, just ahead of Anthony Stefan, who is who is just a grinder
and works at a
plate, so.
grocery store. All right, Monty, he works at a grocery store.
Yes.
Charlottesville,
Yes.
go visit your local Chevy dealer.
Moving along to the Louisville Cardinals, who were able to sweep the winless and hapless Youngstown State pretty easily. Sebastian Gongora got his first win finally.
Micah.
He's not looking.
Did you just switch your hat?
Absolutely. We're talking about Omaha-bound Louisville right now.
Yeah, Omaha-bound Louisville, who you put 14th in your power rankings.
I don't want to put the hay before the horse, you know?
I did. I put it before. Evan Webster also got his first win of the year. He went 6 shutout innings. And then Patrick Forbes, 4 innings, 1 earned run. I think he's still being stretched out a little bit. He did throw 73 pitches. But the big thing, you can tell looking at them that they're getting back to that Louisville identity, but also they're still experimenting. I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15 players that got action position, playing significant time, getting significant at-bats in this series. So, I'm ready to say Louisville's back. Micah, what are your thoughts? I know, again, we can't put too much into this, but I think it's encouraging.
Wait, we can't put too much into them sweeping Youngstown State? Jeez.
Right, I did. Well, I put them at 10th in my power rankings.
No, but I think what's great is, again, we'll see, right? I don't know if maybe that slow, 0-4 start wasn't a good thing for them because it's made, this team kind of do a self-check, look themselves in the mirror and be like, this is not who we are. Just pure talent alone should not be starting 0-4. And I think it's nice too because we still have time. Louisville, one of the few ACC, if not the only ACC team that doesn't have a series this weekend. Is it? Or they like? I know they have Northwestern this weekend. They're not starting ACC play this weekend.
Four teams are playing non-conference. We'll get to it at the end, but yeah. So 10 teams will be going conference play. 4 are not.
So that's what's good is they're kind of still able to get. This is almost like a continued, opportunity to keep getting better. Obviously, game 2 had a little bit of concern from the bullpen. There's still some question marks, right, about this team, but to see Gongora pitch the way he did, he was electric. I know it's Youngstown State. Say what you want about them. I was the first one to kind of harp on them hard last week on our show, but it's also too. It was great to see. Look at the top performers you have offensively, right? There was contribution from the entire lineup this weekend.
I could have put more. I could have put more than 5 guys because
some of these stat lines, some of the guys aren't even listed here. Some of their stat lines would be top performers for pretty much any other team we do on the slideshow. So again, it is Youngstown State, but they have, like you said, they're slowly looking like they're returning to form on what this Louisville team should be.
Yeah, and Lucas Moore, who went 0 for 5, but he still got on base 3 times, stole 2 bases. He's got 9 stolen bases on the year. JT Benson's got 7 stolen bases. They're really starting to get comfortable on the base pass and pressure defenses, and that's back to their identity. And again, I think he's still trying to figure out who's going to be where in the lineup because they've got a mix of the young and the old. So you saw Zion Rose and Alex Alicia and Michael Lippy and those guys getting some time as young guys over JT Benson or Isaac Humphrey or guys like that. So it's just, there's still some figuring out to do before ACC plays. So it's kind of nice they've got the Northwestern series to figure that out. And then of course, Carson Liggett is looming once he's fully ready to go. I imagine he and Patrick Forbes will switch spots and Liggett might eventually get to the Saturday role, but he'll be back in the weekend soon enough. Nick, Louisville, why do you hate him?
Why do I hate him? Is that because I had him 13th?
Yeah, but you had him higher than Micah, so maybe you should be wearing the Louisville hat.
Yeah, and I put him up one. From last week. So everything's positive with me for Louisville.
Wait, I thought we were doing it how we do the top 25 for College Baseball Central. The higher the number, the higher ranked they are. I thought 14 meant 1. Crap. Wow, we're doing my whole power rankings now. Sorry, Florida State. You're actually my 14th ranked power ranking.
Oh, that's harsh.
Wow. I'm not putting too much stock into this. It's a winless youngest town team, but if Louisville is going to get back on track and, be the top 10 team that they were at the first half of last season, they needed a series like this to get their confidence back and get rolling. Now, they had the worst imaginable start to a season that you could have asked for, with rain delays and getting, walked off and all of that. It was not good at all. But you start off, what were they? 2-4, and now you end up 7-4. Like, they're quietly getting back to.
They were 0-4.
They were 0-4, correct? Yeah, that's right. They were 0-4, and they haven't lost since. So you'll take that any day right now if you're a Louisville fan. You should be really happy at where they are right now, considering all that happened in the start of the season. Carson Liggett, to me, is going to be a key factor. If he could get back into this rotation and pitch lights out, this Louisville team is a team to be reckoned with come ACC play. I think the Northwestern series is falling at the right time for them. It's not a good team, but it's a team where you're not going to take them lightly. You're obviously going to go as hard as you can and show everything that you got before you head into ACC play 2 weeks from now. So Louisville back on track.
Love to see it. Hopefully they can continue, take care of business against Northwestern and kind of really settle that lineup a little bit, trying to figure out where they're going into ACC play. So let's move along to also receiving votes, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh,
there he goes. Another hat.
Very impressive weekend for the Pitt Panthers. Micah, I'm gonna put you on the spot first because you did the prediction, and to be clear, I agreed exactly with your prediction that Pittsburgh would go 1-2 on the weekend. They would win the Ohio State game that ultimately got canceled, but they would lose to Oklahoma and California. Are you shocked by these results?
If you would have told me they went 2-0 this weekend and one game got canceled, and the one game that got canceled would be the Ohio State game, I would have said you're joking. I mean, I'm just going to be transparent.
And one dominant fashion.
Yeah. I mean,
run ruled Oklahoma and then beat California by 12.
Yeah, and you can say what you want about the Ryan's start on Friday wasn't great. A 19-9 game. I mean, but they first off had to come back in that game, right? They fell behind, not a great outing. But also, I think something that needs to be talked about is the fact that Oklahoma is a pretty good offensive team. So holding to Oklahoma under 5 is considered a really, really good outing in general. So obviously 9 is over that number, but it's not, I'm not freaking out. But I mean, there is an argument that Pitt's offense has been top 5, top 3 in this conference this year, especially when you talk about quality of opponent. I mean, I'll let you get on the top performers list. I wish you could add some more names, but I mean, by the way, Monty, this was worth, obviously I paid for the D1 subscription for the streaming service, right, to be able to watch the Virginia series last week.
Yep.
This week, these 2 games would have probably paid for it itself without me even having to watch Virginia. This was awesome to watch. I mean, this was
I ended
impressive.
Up paying for it for this week to watch Pitt. And
if I would have known, I would have given you the stream. But
it's all good. This was fantastic baseball. Yeah, the Ryan Andrade start on Friday was a little disheartening because he had done so well the week before against Washington. But you got to love that Jack Sokol went 6 innings and looked really good, other than the little bit of the rocky first, but then settled down. But just the home run ball, man. I mean, by the way, I've got 8 performers, and you're telling me I need to add more? 8 performers, 2 games. Look, that's 2 games.
Yeah, put the whole starting lineup. Come on, Monty. Jeez.
Yeah. I missed one guy. Who did I not put on? Dom Popa, who went 3 for 10. Sorry.
Hitting 300 on the weekend, not good enough. Sorry, man.
Yeah. I mean, just an unbelievable performance from them. I cannot believe how many 38 runs in 2 games against decent I mean, these are teams that have NCAA hopes. California was about to be ranked by a lot of guys in our poll before they ran to Gritzburg. I mean, there's 5 guys with an OPS over 1,000 already, and they have double-digit RBIs. It's Melendez, Cantwell, Zuckerman, Kendro, and Grau. Justin Fogel got hurt on Friday. Hopefully, he's going to be back for the UNC series because he's an important piece. But the lineup is way better than I expected or even imagined that Pitt could be. Nick, what are your thoughts on this Gritzberg team?
Dude, I am loving this Gritzberg team. I mean, Jack Sokol, I mean, the step that he's taken this season from last season is a ginormous step. I mean, it's a leap, really. I mean, he's been quietly one of the better pitchers in this conference, only giving up one run. I mean, on 94 pitches, too. I mean, he definitely went the distance. CJ Funk, another leader from last year into this year, having a hell of a series too. I mean, what can you say? I mean, these guys are proving a lot of people wrong. They're top 50 right now in the RPI. They're playing great ball all around. It's hard to say that. I mean, can anyone confidently say, oh, as they sit right now, I still have them out of the ACC tournament? I still think they're a bottom 2 team. Like, I can't confidently say that anymore. I would pick like maybe 3 or 4 teams before Pitt to miss out on Charlotte. So they're playing really good. They've played decent teams. I mean, you said it best, Monty. I was getting ready to rank Cal if they had beaten Pittsburgh in the top 25, but they killed them. I mean, yeah. I can't wait to see what this team does on ACC play because I know they struggled a lot last year, and this year it's going to be a big surprise, I feel.
Well, and what's interesting too is last year they caused problems. I mean, they on paper they were probably the 14th best team, but they managed to, I believe, they were the 8th, 7th or 8th seed in the ACC tournament, and they caused problems. And as a UVA fan, the last 2 years they've caused UVA problems. And this is beyond causing problems territory. This is dark horse territory, Micah.
Yeah, I mean, they're in my field. I haven't sent you my bracket yet, but welcome to the NCAA tournament field, the Pitt Panthers. I mean, they've done, I mean, everyone, there's a lot of people that have said, obviously they lost to Maryland, right? Shout out to Grayson in our own ACC group chat that's kind of been slandering that. And again, I even gave it a hard time last week, but you can't take away from what they did this weekend. I mean, that was like, it wasn't like they just won the 2 games and were like, okay, like this team's pretty good. I mean, you have to be a pretty darn good ball club to dominate like this. That's not luck.
And it's the two games we thought they would lose. Again, you did the prediction, but if I had done the prediction, I would have had the same exact thing as you did. So yeah, I was stunned by it. And as things stand, to me, they're a top 25 team. Now, will that success be sustained? I don't know, but let's enjoy the ride while we can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Moving along to a team that's a little bit on the other end, the University of Miami. Disappointing performance from the Hurricanes. For those of you listening, Micah has them 13th in our power ranking. Nick has them 14th, and I have them 12th. So not great. Miami is 6-5. They've got the pitching. Their pitching has pitched pretty well. I mean, we finally get Gage Zeal. He shows up with a quality start. Unfortunately, that's not enough. Schlesinger, quality start for him. They managed to get the offense behind him. But then Herrick Hernandez, he doesn't quite get the quality start. I think there were actually 5 runs given up, but only 3 of them earned for him. But the starting pitching is encouraging, but the offense kind of disappeared at times during this series. Jack Caglione absolutely dominated this lineup for 6 innings on Sunday. That really gave Miami no chance. The reason it's 8-4 is because Dorian Gonzalez hits a grand slam to make it to get them closer. But this Miami team won a game, so that's something to be encouraged. But they've lost 3 of 4 now. Nick, talk to me about Miami.
I was feeling so positive about them after they, tied the series 1-1, and then they kind of just, pooped the bed on Sunday. But I have them last in my power rankings. It's not that Miami hasn't been a horrible team. They haven't. It's just that other teams are starting to look a little bit better than them. And, playing the number 5 team in the country is or I guess that's our rankings, but playing a top 5 team in your out of conference schedule is hard to do, but you are Miami. I mean, I would have liked to see a series win and really build my confidence of how this team would go this season. Because I started them off in my top 25 at 25, and they have not been in since the start. So I'm a little disappointed. Daniel Cuvée, though, is still hitting the ball really well. He's been tearing the ball off the covers, so that's still very encouraging. We'll see. I mean, I don't think right now you can confidently say that this is a regional team at the moment. I mean, sitting at 6-5, they have a couple of bad losses too. They got to find something. I feel like Miami's a little lost at this point, trying to find their identity.
Yeah, Micah, I'm kind of with Nick on this, but are you at all worried about Virginia going down there next weekend to start ACC play with what you've seen from Miami so far?
So I was just thinking about that. Like, I feel like this could almost be the perfect opening weekend for Virginia. Like, from a standpoint of, like, you're getting a brand, you're going to, I mean, no matter what, Mark Light Field is a tough place to play. No matter, unless Miami is probably 0-30, there's going to be a good atmosphere there, right? So you're going to get a pretty good environment. You're going to get a chance to play a team that's also trying to figure some things out. I mean, if you would have told me Gage Zeal goes 6 innings with 3 earned runs and 9 strikeouts, I probably would have told you that Miami would have won that game. The way they kind of had hit a little bit, obviously they've been a little cooler as of late, but it never really felt like they were in that game. Again, you mentioned game 3. I mean, yeah, the grand slam made it interesting, but like it never felt like they were truly in that game. I mean, Florida jumped on them early. Hernandez finally looked human, which again, cause for concern or not, it's up to you. But we talked about it a little bit, with living and dying off the home run ball for Duke. I mean, Miami's kind of felt that way a little bit too, right? In this game that they win, they're going yard, 3 times? Is it 3 times in that game?
Yes. Only 7 hits.
Yeah, and 3 of them left the yard, right? So you can't live off that. And they've loaded the bases a lot, even in those non-ACC, or this series, excuse me. They had the bases loaded a couple different times against NJIT, and they didn't drive in a ton with it. And again, obviously they hit the grand slam here with the bases loaded, but what if it's not a grand slam? What if that ball is 5 feet shorter, right? Like, they're hitting the ball hard, but it's not dropping. I mean, our guy Lucas Costello, I hope he gets it going because he's been struggling a little bit of late. That's not been great for them. But overall, I mean, this team I don't think it's an NCAA tournament team right now. Now, I'm not ruling them out, right? But you can't tell me that what you've seen so far makes you think that this Miami team deserves an NCAA tournament spot if the season were to end today.
When you get the kind of production they're getting out of their starting pitching, you've got to be better than 6-5 in non-conference play. I mean, all 3 guys have gone at least 17 innings over 3 starts. They all have 20 plus strikeouts. Sorry, Gage Zeal only has 19, but they're producing, and then they're 6-5. It's really disappointing. So, disappointing start for Miami. But now we're moving on to the good old-fashioned hate with Georgia Tech and Georgia. I will say that I have the stats on the bottom, which do incorporate Friday's game, even though technically Drew Burress has 10 home runs, but it does not count until that suspended game gets finished. So just keep that in mind that I have lied on some of these stats or counted them early. But Georgia Tech, they lose 2. Looks like they're going to probably lose the 3rd once they get that suspended game completed. Georgia Tech, they've fallen back to earth a little bit. Like Micah is going to toot his own horn, as he should. For all the times that we give him crap for being wrong, I think he deserves to pat himself on the back for being correct. Micah, go ahead and do your victory lap, my friend.
I don't want to.
Yeah, I know. That's
it's fun to do it in the group chat because it's just fun to give you guys a hard time. But
I know.
like on a serious note, like I was hoping I was going to be wrong. I mean, if you read the preview articles, just so everyone that's listening knows, Monty wrote the Atlantic, I wrote the Coastal. We kind of teamed up because shout out to you, Monty. I was very busy. It's been kind of hectic the last. After this coming weekend, I kind of free up where I can fully focus on baseball and no more college basketball for me. But I had even put in the article until that midweek game for Georgia against Michigan State, excuse me. Georgia is going to win this series. And then that midweek game happened where Charlie Condon is a stud, right, with 3 home runs, and they still lose by like 15 runs. I'm like, well, I don't know about that
Michigan State.
Michigan State, yeah. Like, guys, Michigan State, this is not like Tom Izzo. This isn't,
this isn't basketball.
This isn't the Mark D'Antonio, right? The football coach.
Yeah.
So, the playoff Michigan State. Like, this is Michigan State baseball who, let's just call it what it is a mediocre Big Ten team. So
below mid-major.
Yeah, right. So, they do play like half their non-conference schedule in Greenville, South Carolina, home to the SoCon tournament. So are they just a glorified SoCon team? Some are asking. But it's just crazy because I convinced myself, I let the outside noise come in. And there's still hope for this Georgia Tech team, right? But I mean, they purely had a bad weekend. Like, honestly, game 2, say it. I mean, I don't want to hear your guys' thoughts. Was game 2 the best game for Georgia Tech? Like, I really think it may have been the best game for Georgia Tech, all things considered.
I mean, it's a shame because the pitching in the past has been such a problem, but you get 2 good starts out of Finateri and McGuire, and you lose both games.
Yeah,
that's got to be so annoying.
One thing that I've noticed, and I mean, I like we like him a lot, right, Nick? He engaged with our tweets all the time. He's a great kid. But like last year, we saw guys like Ben King and Cam Jones kind of on these lists all year long with, their ability to come out of the bullpen and kind of be reliable. And, they haven't really been a huge part of that bullpen so far this year. You've seen, just kind of, I mean, there's only one pitcher on this entire staff, guys, that has 10 plus innings. I mean, granted, again, we're not counting Cam Hill's 3. Technically, no, that wouldn't even get him there. That would still get him to 9 innings.
Yeah, he wasn't stretched out, I don't think so.
Yeah, but like we haven't seen a lot from this staff. Like, we haven't seen literally Aiden Finateri has been the guy that's kind of been stretched out, and he's been phenomenal. And that's what, again, you harped on it, Monty. I mean, that's what's so frustrating is we talk about, right, Georgia Tech can hit. And then the one time they get the one thing we've been questioning, which is the pitching, they get a very quality start, and they lose that one 3-1.
Yeah,
wasn't that at home too? Or that one was in Athens, right? Because it was rained out in Atlanta. I'm trying to remember who was home for what, but it was rained out.
It's so confusing because the South Carolina Clemson series went a different order than the Georgia Tech Georgia, so I cannot remember what it. I think the middle one.
It was in Atlanta, then it was in Athens, and it was at Coolray on Sunday. That's what it was.
Yeah. Okay. I could not keep track. Yeah, Nick, what are your thoughts on this Georgia Tech team? I know you were pretty high on them with us, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's got to be so annoying for Aiden. I mean, it's kind of like when Jacob deGrom was with the Mets. You get a quality start from him, and the Mets wouldn't hit. It kind of reminds me of being a Giants fan where Bumgarner would get quality starts, and then the Giants wouldn't hit. It's got to be so frustrating because Georgia Tech is a team that can hit the ball. I mean, I don't know where Peyton Green went this week because he was like, the kid everyone was talking about last week, and now it's Drew. It's a shame that both of them weren't clicking at the same time throughout this weekend because you probably would win game 2. And pitching, man, the relief pitching has just been the story as old as time. I mean, like, I was checking up on this game 3, and they were up 9-8 in the 8th inning, and then suddenly Georgia was ahead and they won the game. It's got to be so frustrating to not have reliable pitching, because I think this Georgia Tech team, with any kind of good pitching, is a regional team. I mean, they're so good when it comes to offense, but I don't know. I mean, where do you guys see right now where Georgia Tech might end up when the season's all said and done? I mean, conference play is coming up, and you're not going to win many series if you can't pitch in this league.
Yeah, there's a couple of teams that I'm worried about because they can hit, but then are they going to have the pitching? So Georgia Tech's one of them. I don't think they're a tournament team unless they get some. If Logan McGuire, he had a good midweek start the week before the start before this. So if he settles in, and is this the guy? You've got 2 out of 3 good starters. Hopefully Cameron Hill settles in, but you still have to figure out the bullpen. So I don't have them as a tournament team after seeing them this weekend. I know that's a very quick transition, but we saw them facing a Georgia team that I don't have ranked in the top 25. I think I would have had them number 26, but it's just a very disappointing performance. Micah, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, again, just like I said, I mean, it's frustrating to see this. So when you talk about, this is Georgia Tech team and NCAA tournament team, I haven't had them even in my considered field this entire time. I have too many question marks, and I want to be wrong. Like I've said it 1,000 times, right? This Georgia Tech fan base is fantastic. I have a soft spot for them, but it's just, it's just very frustrating. It really is, because this was, I mean, I don't want to get too far down into a rabbit hole, right? But do we even know if Georgia's good? Like, are we for sure that Georgia is good? Like, I mean, I ranked them because you have to rank a team that's got that record that they do. Yeah,
I'm not convinced.
This team wasn't in my field either. Like I have them. I think I haven't finished like my bubble yet, but they're going to be a bubble team. I think I'm going to have them in my field right now. But like there's a legitimate world where Georgia's the 3rd or 4th worst team in the SEC.
Yeah.
So that is cusp NCAA tournament, obviously, and again, use that transitive property. If we want to say the ACC and the SEC are somewhat balanced, right? Or even we want to give the SEC the edge, and that just means worse things for Georgia Tech from a competitive standpoint. So, it's just because, like you said, Monty, like, yeah, they're technically only 0-2 on the weekend, and obviously, who knows? Maybe they'll come back and if they reschedule this game at 9-3, right? And maybe Georgia Tech comes back because they can hit. It's very plausible, but based off what we saw this weekend, they are 0-3 in my mind. So,
and I put Georgia in my top 25 just because, they're undefeated and they've had some good wins, but their RPI's high. But when you look at their schedule and when you look at the teams they've beaten, they've only beaten Northern Kentucky twice by 1 run. They beat Presbyterian by 1 run, and they got ruled out against Michigan State.
Yeah, that's why I didn't rank them. I know I shouldn't necessarily put too much into a midweek game, but 19-6 to Michigan State, I was like, that's going to put them at 26 for me.
Yeah, three of those 4 teams are 3 of those 4 matchups. Their records are 4-7 or 4-8 during that time. So it's got to be so frustrating for Georgia Tech, because I feel like they wanted this series, they had this series, and pitching just came back to bite them.
Yep. To end on a positive note, we've talked about Aiden Finateri, but to put some stats on it, 17 innings, just 2 earned runs given up for a 1.06 ERA, 21 strikeouts, just 2 walks. So, he's really taken a step forward from last season. So that's a positive to look at if you're a Georgia Tech fan. Moving along to a team that we don't have to search very long for positives. The last undefeated team in the Atlantic Coast Conference, Link Jarrett's Florida State Seminoles. They head to Greenville. They get rained out on Friday, so they play a doubleheader on Saturday. They take care of business. That score in Game 1 should say 11-2 Florida State. Game 2 was 13-7 over Illinois, and they swept the weekend, won the first pitch invitational 8-3 over Western Michigan. Jamie Arnold had another sensational start. He has yet to give up an earned run in 17 innings. He has really taken a step forward from his freshman to sophomore year. He looks like an ace. And then Cam Leiter looked a little bit human. But Nick, we'll start with you because I think you took Florida State to come back before Louisville, and Micah took Louisville. So we'll start with you talking about this Florida State Seminole baseball team.
Man, I'm loving what they're doing. I mean, I think Link has turned it around at the right time. I mean, I knew that this would be a big year for him when he starts getting his guys and having some experience. I mean, Florida State was one of the youngest teams in the ACC last year. And I mean, look what their vets now are doing. I mean, look at James. James Tibbs already has 6 home runs on the season. He went 6 for 16 with a double too. I mean, 4 RBIs. He is just tearing the cover off the ball. I mean, Cam had a rough start, but I mean, I don't think we're going to see that too often this season. I ranked Florida State 3rd in my power rankings. I mean, they've been just jumping consistently every week, and I have them in my top 25. I think I got them at number 21 for College Baseball Central, but I'm very, very impressed with Florida State. They're a team that is ready for conference play. They're ready to wash off last season and get into this season. I mean, this is really, really good.
Yeah. By the way, they've only trailed 1 inning this entire season, and that was in the very beginning of that Western Michigan game in Game 3, not Game 2 on the board there. And obviously, Connor Whitaker will likely take the 3rd Sunday spot because of the weather on that opening weekend. He's been doing the midweeks. But Micah, speaking of power rankings, you have them number 1 in your power rankings. So not to discourage people from thinking that you don't like Florida State. You love Florida State. Tell me.
So first off, again, just to reiterate, power rankings are purely based off what has happened, not prediction of the future. But besides the point, this was impressive. I mean, Cam Leiter does not look very good, right? And they get the offensive support they need. And Illinois is Illinois. Like this 3-game set, not very difficult. I mean, let's just call it what it is, right? Western Michigan, honestly, was probably the best team in this, if you ask me. If you want me to tell you who I think the best is, that's probably Western Michigan. It's again, Jamie Arnold has looked like, it seems like it's him and Santucci, right now as the 2 best pitchers in the conference, just based off purely what we've seen.
Yep, they're the only 2 that I can think. They're the only 2 that I can think of that have gone 17 innings and yet to give up a run.
Yeah, and like you've seen some great outings from like Brady Lauk out of the bullpen. You've got Andrew Armstrong, who's been pretty good too. I know he's come out of the pen. He's actually got a win in one of those appearances. Like they've been really good about how their bullpen is structured. There really hasn't been a ton of shortchanging there. Obviously Cam Smith is mentioned here. I mean, he's hitting 478 right this season with a 547 OBP. Like he is been very, very good and very, very consistent. Drew Farrow, and who's not even on your top performers this weekend, is still one of the best lineups or bats in this lineup. I mean, there's reasons at the bare minimum, right, to be excited about this Florida State team because, again, I didn't take them as my bounce back team because I thought that some of the stuff that happened, where they missed last year may have been more of just they need more time than Louisville does. But I think I'm wrong. I mean, Nick said it. Like Link Jarrett's got this team rolling right now. Like they still, in my opinion, haven't been truly challenged by a really great ball club. But at the end of the day, we're talking about teams like Akron beat Duke and UMass beat Virginia. So like, winning every game on your schedule is very, very difficult to do. So to be 10-0 at this point, is very impressive. So honestly, I have to power rank them 1 because I don't see why. If you haven't lost yet, there's a reason. You must be good, right?
Yeah, and 10-0 with only trailing in 1 inning of play is rather impressive. And it doesn't seem to matter who they put behind the plate catching because they like to switch McGuire Holbrook and Jackson West, and both those guys are going to apparently produce no matter what. Jaime Ferrer got his first 2 home runs of the year. Alex Lodies, who's hitting in the 9-hole, he got his first home run. But yeah, there's a lot to love from Florida State.
Absolutely.
My camera somehow got unplugged. You guys got me? Yeah, there we go.
Oh, I can see you bright and clear.
All right. All right, moving along to the hometown team for Nick, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. They remain the number one team in the nation. They sweep another, I guess, was it another tournament? I don't know. They faced Binghamton twice on Saturday due to the weather, and then took care of business against Elon. The two games against Binghamton were adventures, but all in all, they got to 10-1, and they're pitching is doing their thing, and they're getting some pretty good production out of the supporting cast for Nick Kurtz and Seaver King. Nick, we'll start with you. Tell me your impressions of this Wake Forest team.
So it was supposed to be a round robin. Valpo was also part of this, but because of the horrible weather on Friday and schedules and teams trying to get out of town, they decided to play Binghamton twice and then just keep the Elon game. I was in attendance for, the Chase Burns game and the Michael Massey game. To start off, the relief pitching for games 1 and 2 were extremely shaky. They, especially in game 2, because they gave up not only some runs, but some very bad errors in that bottom of the 8th inning where Binghamton tied it and they needed a walk-off. But shout out to Cameron Gill. I mean, that game too, he was the MVP. He had 2 pickoffs, one at second, one at third, and hit the game-winning. I hit off the top of the wall. I don't know. I guess they did. Well, based on the score, they didn't count as a home run. So, and went 3 for 5. So Cameron Gill, I mean, just unreal on Saturday. The relief pitching is a little shaky, but they seem to find their groove on game 3 against Elon. Michael Massey, I mean, guys, I just got to tell you. So I saw Michael today, and I had to give him some shit because I got out of work at 2, or we closed at 2:30. The game started at 2. Showed up at the park by 3:15, hoping to be there by the 3rd inning, and it was the 6th inning. I was just so shocked. And I was like, how the hell is this already in the 6th inning? And I look at the scoreboard. Oh, Massey's only given up 1 hit in 6 innings. I mean, the dude was just unreal. So I just couldn't believe it. But the bats kind of woke up. Nick Kurtz got himself a home run thanks to a lovely cinnamon roll that I had a Wake Forest parent deliver to him. So I thought that would get him going a little bit. But no, Nick was hitting the ball really well on Sunday. Seemed like he found his groove. He only went, I think, 1 for 4 with the home run, but those outs were very loud outs. I mean, he could have put the game on Sunday into a mercy rule if he had not missed it grand slam by like 2 feet. So he had some very loud outs. I expect him to be back on track. But the rest of the lineup was doing really, really well. I think the bats have definitely woken up. But I think besides Will Ray, who you can kind of rely on coming out of the bullpen, there's not a whole lot of depth that they have found yet in this bullpen. So we'll see what happens. Cole Rowland's still out. He's beginning to throw again. We're still waiting on Crawford Wade to get some bullpen time too after his UCL tear from last year. But we'll see. I'm not worried about the bullpen too much. I think they'll eventually find the groove. It's just in a matter of time when they find it.
Yeah, and to the other guy who's been rather impressed by the bullpen, Ben Shinosky has 5.2 scoreless innings. But other than that, you're right. Yeah, when I was looking at the bullpen numbers, not great. I had to keep reminding myself Hayden LeFou is the midweek starter. He's got great numbers, but he is a starter during the midweek. Micah, you got anything else to add on this number one team in the country?
They're not the number one team in the country. They shouldn't be. I'm just trying to be honest here. I mean, I'm very concerned about this bullpen. You guys can dance around it all you want. They got Duke this weekend, and then they got Virginia. If they don't figure it out, I mean, again, is this team going to miss the tournament? No. Is this team probably going to host a regional? Yes. But we were told this is the unanimous number one team in the country. I get to see Binghamton tomorrow, gentlemen. They play ETSU at our ballpark. So I will get to see what Binghamton looks like. I don't know. I know that they were the preseason favorite in the America East. I know they have one of the most beautiful ballparks of all the mid-major schools out there. Check it out if you haven't already. But that's about all I know about the Binghamton Bearcats. And I know that they play Virginia Tech on Wednesday. But
for the record, I didn't dance around anything. I'm facilitating. I haven't given my opinion yet.
That's fair. That's fair. But, for me, like, I don't like when we just go off of what the preseason polls say. And, Wake Forest deserved to be the preseason number 1 team in the country based off of what we saw. But, Nick Kurtz is slowly but surely getting it going. I'm sure he is going to figure it out, right? But this was the preseason player of the year. He does not look like the best player in college baseball this year. I don't even think he's like the best hitter in the ACC. So I'm a little concerned that, they still aren't clicking. Like, I mean, I made the joke to Nick, like, oh, he was late because, he's just sleepwalking through it. And who knows? Maybe they turn on this weekend against Duke, and I'm eating my words, and, Nick will be the first one to hopefully defend me on this. Like, I want to eat my words. I want Wake Forest to be good. Like, I want to go back to Omaha with Nick next year and learn about every single player's deli order about 27 times in the hotel room. But, right now, like, there is some legitimate concerns. I mean, that Binghamton game in game 2, like, you shouldn't be getting into a situation where you need to walk them off in the 9th inning. You struggle a little bit. You let Binghamton get back into it in game 1. I mean, yeah, they dominated Elon. Obviously, Monty, you are a CAA homer. No, I'm just kidding. But, it's because obviously I was making that joke and then completely forgot that VCU's in the A10. That was a terrible joke. But anyways, it's like Elon was pretty good last year, right? But it's not anything to necessarily write home about. The starting pitching is so good, right? That they're going to be in every single game, no matter what, right? Like I'm not worried about that. It's, kind of similar to like what we talked about with Virginia, right? Like we're holding them to the standard of returning to Omaha. Will Nick Kurtz get going? Will this lineup truly get rolling again? And will this bullpen figure it out? Like, it's almost a weird flip, right? Like Virginia's starting pitching has been kind of the question mark. The bullpen's been pretty darn good for Virginia. Where on the flip side, Wake Forest's bullpen's kind of the question mark. Maybe Monty disagrees a little bit, but like on the Virginia being a good bullpen. But, it feels I'm more comfortable with it maybe. But again, you won. Like you went 3-0. You're 10-1, right? Like you're a top 10 team, and we know the potential of this team. But I mean, if you play from top to bottom, this bullpen performs like they did this weekend against Binghamton, this weekend against Duke. Are any of you saying that like Wake's winning that series? I'm not. Like if the bullpen comes out and plays the same way, I'm taking Duke. If we get the same performance. Again.
Didn't we just talk about Duke an hour ago, and you were like, "Watch out!" Like you were showing concerns about their offense against.
You're right. But again, like,
that was an hour ago. No,
but Akron's bullpen's better. No, I'm kidding.
No. I agree with you. I'm with you on the bullpen. I think Kurtz and King, they're going to hit, right? I'm not as concerned about their slow start. What I am impressed about is the 4 guys around them that I was talking about needs to produce early on in the season, and they're doing that. Tellier, Ballestero, Hawk, and Winne, they are all hitting 300 plus with 5 extra base hits plus. I mean, Tellier's hitting 390 with 10 extra base hits, 10 walks, and he only has like 8 Ks. So, you got to love that on the offensive side. But, yeah, I'm with you, Micah. That bullpen is alarming. I also
want to give one more name that I thought was to be positive. Merrick Houston's been hitting the ball well too.
Yeah,
I've enjoyed seeing him take a huge step forward from last year because Nick and I were both last year like, if we can get a little bit more from him, right? He's taken a huge step forward too. So just another positive name to throw out there offensively that has been great to see.
Yeah, he just missed the top performers list. I think I have him at he was 4 for 14. With his first home run of the year. Anyway, the other thing is you talk about, I felt like the pitching staff hasn't met expectations, and I thought they kind of sleptwalked the starting rotation, and then I actually ran the numbers, and I'm just the absurd standard I'm holding them to. They're 8-0 with a 1.88 ERA and 68 strikeouts combined in 47.
They don't have a sub 1 ERA, Monty. I think we need to talk about how bad this starting pitching is. I think we need to really start waving the red flag.
I knew they've been good, but I expected them to be like sub 1 ERA. I did expect that. It's just a bit absurd.
We expected 0 earned runs allowed entering ACC play.
Right. And so I had to actually calculate that to be like, Monty, you're ridiculous. So it's going to be a great series. It's going to be interesting. We're going to find out a lot about one of the two teams, I think, or both. Before we get into
I should let you guys know the guys have most of them have shaved their heads. I don't know why. It's kind of a thing that they're doing. Maybe to get the vibes going a little bit more, but they are all shaving their heads, buzz cuts. So,
all right, your move, Duke. Your move,
Duke. What are you going to do? Nick, shave your eyebrows?
Nick, if you're actually a Wake Forest guy, you'll shave your head.
I was joking around with
I
my
shaved
girlfriend
mine.
Today,
See, my hair's gone now.
I was joking around with my girlfriend. I said, I think I might shave with my head in solidarity with the Wake Forest baseball team.
Okay, we're not going to go off here. Nick, you have a girlfriend? Thanks for telling me, buddy. That's all I have to say on that part. But I thought we were friends.
You never asked.
All right. Anyway, before we get too far off the rails, you guys can bring this up later. The best series on the weekend, we were robbed of having it be 3 games because of the weather. They will make up that third game at another time. But Clemson was able to scratch out 2 5-4 victories. Really impressive performance by Clemson. That 18-1 loss to Kennesaw State way back in the rearview mirror. They're the number 1 team in our power rankings. Micah, tell me what you thought about this Clemson baseball team this weekend.
I mean, that was awesome, right? I mean, we saw resilience. We saw the clutch hitting, clutch outings. Like Matthew Marshall didn't make, obviously, like you only really highlight the starting pitching, but Matthew Marshall was incredible out of the pen both games. Came out of the pen in both of them there. I talked about him potentially being a starter this year. I think they found his role, and he delivered this weekend. And what was amazing was, I mean, was this the best series we've seen in college baseball this year? Like, again, we've seen some really great games in these tournaments and things like that. Obviously Houston had some really good games this weekend, but I feel like this was the best series we've seen, and it's not even really a question mark, right? Like
in terms of expectations and delivering on those, yeah. I'd say so.
I mean, game 1, we got Ethan Petrie out here just putting South Carolina on his back on the 9th, but then how does Clemson respond? Shut down innings to get it done, and then with a walk-off home run. As the center fielder, a former Clemson Tiger has to watch the ball sail over his head for a walk-off. I know Clemson fans thoroughly enjoyed that. And then obviously, again, we see something similar in game 2 at Clemson. And the atmosphere, by the way, of the neutral site game, that was actually a neutral site game. Like, I was amazed by that. I don't know if Columbia Fireflies just evenly distributed, the tickets to Clemson and South Carolina and just didn't do any general sales, or if it just kind of worked out really well. And that was legitimately a 50-50 split, which was awesome to see.
Yeah. Attendance was 9,284.
Yeah, that was, it was amazing to see. I mean, it was crazy because, you look at the top performers, right? Like, there was not a single player that was just put the team on his back, right? You could probably say Andrew Sifo is probably the closest to that, right? But, nobody was hitting 500 plus. Nobody was, just the guy. Everyone stepped up in different situations. I mean, Cam Cantarella was big when he needed to be, right? He had the big RBI in game 1 to kind of get things rolling. He had the leadoff double too, which was amazing. But this was just, I'm glad we saved this for last, right? We saved the best for last. I'm assuming that's why you did it, Monty. But
it was just the way the games got.
This was just amazing. It really was, and I don't know about you guys, but I walked away from both of these teams in my opinion, right now should be hosting regionals if the season ended today. Like I still think South Carolina is a top 15 program and team this year.
I was really impressed with their pitching, which is I think where they had some of the question marks. South Carolina did, but yeah, no, I feel robbed we didn't have that third game. Nick, thoughts on this Clemson South Carolina matchup?
Clemson baseball's back. That was so impressive. I ranked them, I think, number 1 in my ACC power rankings.
3. Oh, nope. You got them 1. Sorry.
Yeah. I got them 1. They were just, I mean, first of all, great games. I mean, I think those were the 2 best college baseball games we've had so far. I mean, they were just unreal. Cam struggled a bit, but I think he'll get going. Will Taylor, I mean, he's been lighting it up. I mean, what can you say? This was so fun to watch. This was so fun to keep track of. I'm really happy for Clemson. Micah can attest to this. I think ACC baseball is at its best when Clemson is really good.
Yep.
And earlier I said tonight that right now I can see 4 teams out of this conference in Omaha, and Clemson's one of them. I think it's Clemson, Duke, Wake, and Virginia. And Clemson might be leading the pack for me right now because what they did to South Carolina. I mean, South Carolina is a great ball club. I think they're really good. I think they'll end up hosting. But it just feels so good for Clemson to do what they did this weekend. I can't wait I hope they get that game 3 in very soon, because to say that they swept South Carolina in a season is just fantastic.
It felt like a super regional, right, Micah?
Right.
No, I mean, it
Well.
definitely did. I mean, that was great. I mean, I don't know what else how else to describe it. I mean, I'm low key kind of mad that I didn't just try to venture over for one of them.
Yeah, well, it would have been easier if they'd gone over to Greenville, right? All right, so that brings us to our standings and the conference schedule ahead of. You can see Florida State leading the way at 10-0 in the Atlantic Division. These standings don't mean anything because no one's played conference games yet. But you can see there are 4 teams that are still going to be in non-conference play. That's Louisville, Georgia Tech, Clemson, and Florida State. That Youngstown State at Georgia Tech series is 4 games, Micah. So just so you don't get hoodwinked like the Towson NC State series.
Why don't we just make it 5? Let's just play 5 games. Let's just make it.
ACC play, though, that's what we really want to talk about, isn't it? NC State hosting Boston College. Notre Dame at Virginia Tech. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of runs in that game. We get to find out whether Gritzburg is for real as they head to Chapel Hill. The top 10 matchup, Duke and Wake Forest. I will be there for at least games 1 and 2. And then Virginia heads to Miami. What's the big series that you're looking for, Michael? If you could go to any one of these series, which one are you going to?
I mean, there's an easy answer, right? Like,
I
don't want to steal everyone's answer. I mean, honestly, I'm just going to say it. If you don't pick Duke and Wake Forest as your answer, I want to have a serious conversation with you to make sure you're okay. Because it's the best series that we've had all year. Like, there's so much intrigue. If you were an ACC baseball fan in that, right? Is the bullpen figured out? Is Wake going to be able to hit on this Duke pitching staff? And kind of flip side, right? Is the offense for real? Are they going to have success at the couch? Was Wake Forest just on cruise control to start the beginning of the season? Like, there's so much intrigue into this. Like, I'm going to be honest, guys. I'm very upset this is the opening weekend. Like, why couldn't we get this a little bit later in the year? I mean, I'm glad we're starting it off with a bang, but selfishly, I would love to have seen this a little bit later. But, I'll just say Duke and Wake Forest, and maybe if the other one that I would say doesn't get covered, which it might, then we can talk about that one at that point. But I think it's pretty clear Duke at Wake Forest is by far the biggest, most exciting series this weekend in the ACC.
Micah, who wins that series?
Duke.
Oh, I like it. All right, Nick, what about you? What's this one series you're highlighting? You can use the same one. I don't care.
Well, I will be actually going. So, Monty, I will probably see you at least game 1. I will be headed over to the couch.
You got to see Santucci versus Hartle.
I mean, I've been looking forward to that matchup like since the beginning of January. I can't wait to see this matchup. I mean, it's all I've been talking about for a month now is Santucci and Hartle. I just cannot wait for it. If I were to pick something other than the Wake to Forest Duke series, and I will pick Wake to win that. I mean, I think the start, if there's any bad relief pitching woes, I think, and Corey Muscara, he's a smart guy. I think he'll let his pitchers go long if he needs to. So if the starters are having a good day, I think it's definitely the series to have them go the distance, especially if the game is close. I think Walt needs to know that, and I think Moose will exercise that. But if I'm picking a series that is not Wake Forest and Duke, I gotta go with Pittsburgh at UNC. I mean, is Monty? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by all of them, so I can go with a different one. Who would have thought though? Pittsburgh at North Carolina would be a series, the second most intriguing series of the weekend.
Exactly. Like who would have thought that? I mean, is Pitt for real? Like this kind of reminds me of Boston College at North Carolina last year, where did we think Boston College was going to be for real? And they went down and swept Chapel Hill. And but before then, they had never won a game in Chapel Hill before. That was their first win. And then to sweep the series was impressive. So this Pitt team, it's sort of reminding me of this Boston College team last year. I'm excited to see. I want to see if Pitt's for real. And if they are for real, if they do end up winning this series, boys, we got a lot of questions about North Carolina. It's like they're always consistent, but if you get swept at home against a up-and-coming Gritzburg team, we got some questions to ask for UNC.
Who wins the series?
I'm going to take right now Carolina 2 out of 3.
I like it. All right. Well, I'm going to go with a surprise one here. Notre Dame at Virginia Tech. I've got questions about both these teams that I want answered. I want to see what Notre Dame pitching can do against that Virginia Tech offense. And I want to see what Virginia Tech pitching can do against that Notre Dame offense. You know, both these teams are lighting up the scoreboards offensively. I have questions about their pitching. Obviously, Virginia Tech's pitching has been a lot better than we thought, but this is a big test, that Notre Dame lineup. So that's the one I'm looking at, and I think Virginia Tech's going to win 2 out of 3. I mean, just a great opening slate of games for the ACC.
You know, Monty, I was bummed. I thought we were going to pick all the series together. I'm a little sad that we didn't. You know,
what do you want? We can.
Well, so I'm also upset with you that you didn't take Virginia and Miami. Like, you want to know about Notre Dame and Virginia Tech, and I don't blame you. I agree with you. I don't think there's a single series this weekend that I'm like, oh man, I don't want to watch it. But Virginia at Miami, and don't you want to know if Miami's legit? Like, if Miami's I think if Virginia goes in Miami and wins this series, you got to start really questioning Miami. Like, I know Virginia is a good ball club, but that'd be back-to-back home weekend series losses, and it's not going to get easier for Miami. We've highlighted it before, you know, when Nick and I were lucky enough to talk with Lucas, right? Like, this Miami schedule is insanely difficult. You know, they still have Clemson coming to town this month. They've got, I'm trying to blank who else is coming to town, but the schedule is not going to be favorable to them and kind to them. And if they can't take this series against Virginia, or at least, you know, give us some reasons to believe that they can take ACC series moving forward, I mean, there is a legitimate chance that Miami could be last year's like Louisville / Florida State, a team that we are so accustomed to seeing in the tournament in ACC play, and maybe they miss it this year entirely. I don't think that's the case right now, but we will learn that, or we'll learn a little bit more about that this weekend when they host Virginia.
Yeah, it's going to be. Yeah, I mean, again, like I'm looking forward to trying to watch as much of these games as I can, even if I have to watch them on a delay, because I'll be at the Duke Wake Forest games. I honestly cannot wait for ACC play, because there's only so much we can talk about Like, there's only so much we can learn about the teams that they're playing right now with a lot of the lesser opposition. So it's time to get some questions answered, and I think we're going to get some answered for these 10 teams this weekend.
Who would you say, Monty, is on the biggest upset alert? Because I maybe I'm mistaken, but 4 out of the 5 teams you would say that are at home are probably the favorite, and then Virginia might be the one that's not favored, or excuse me, that is the road favorite in these games. I guess is there a team that you think's on upset watch?
I'd say North Carolina with the way Pittsburgh's swinging the bat.
Okay.
What would you say?
So here's my upset pick. I think Boston College wins the series at NC State.
I knew he was going to say that. I absolutely knew he was going to say that.
It's funny that you set me up.
You
set me up to take a shot
to beat Wake, and I still knew that he was going to say Boston College was going to beat NC State. I knew it.
He used me to just take a shot at you.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe you should have told him about your girlfriend.
Yeah. I thought we were friends. What the heck? No, but seriously, like, I mean, I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. I have not seen enough from NC State to believe that they are not prone to something like this. I think that Boston College is better than what we've seen. And I don't know, man. I just have this weird feeling that Boston College is going to go in. And I mean, Nick, I'm maybe this is the wrong take. If you lose this series, it might be not a really good thing, right now. But it might wake NC State up a little bit because this team is better than what we've seen so far. I'm still I don't know, man.
No. And Micah, I'm completely joking with you when I give you shit about like you talking about. NC
and there goes now. I had to put the E on the wonderful podcast. Thanks, Nick. We almost got through the whole show without an explicit, and Nick had to
cursed like 3 times already. I'm surprised you caught this one, but
I must have missed the other 2.
But no, I think Micah, you make a good point. Like, I'm not trying to like discredit you on what you think about NC State because there are questions that need to be answered about State's bullpen. I think the bats have improved. I think we finally got some consistency out of the rotation through last week or this past weekend. But no, this is going to be a challenge. I agree with you. I think I don't know if Boston College beats State in this series. That is it already too late for a wake-up call? Because if this does happen, it's just a repeat of last year. Like already on the early going the ACC schedule, it's already a repeat. So, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I'm picking State to win this series, but we'll see. Your questions of concern are very valid.
Yeah, and I mean, that'll lead us into our final slide, the power rankings here. Maybe, there we go. The newest power rankings has NC State at number 8. They did move up 1. Clemson and Florida State, they're our biggest risers. They each move up 3 spots to take 1 and 2 respectively. The biggest drop is Georgia Tech at -4, dropping down from 6 to 10. Micah, what are your thoughts on our power rankings?
I got tripped out by your graphic because I see the Charlotte skyline and then I see Disharoon Park in the background of the power rankings. So I was like, when did we get a skyscraper in Charlottesville, Monty? That's sick. But no, on a serious note, I think I was shocked to see that I wasn't the only one that was at Florida State at number 1. To be honest, I think that was Grayson or was it Jake?
Nope. Cole and Jake had.
Had Cole too. That's right. Yeah, that one was most surprising. I was also surprised that Clemson at 1 occurred. Like, I know winning that series against South Carolina was impressive. I don't want to, just diminish that, right? But for how much we praised Wake Forest and Duke, I just assumed that wouldn't have been enough to jump them right from 4 to 1. I don't necessarily disagree. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Monty. I had Clemson at 2, right? So like, I mean, obviously, yep. I'm not mistaken, or disagreeing with that jump. I really like the Pitt over North Carolina one. I guess I can't call that an upset now if we're going to power rank Pitt above North Carolina. But I really like that jump. I'm glad that our team we all saw that. And again, I guess this will be my chance to dance a little bit. I'm glad you guys finally realized that Georgia Tech is number 10 because that's where I had them going into the week last week. So I'm glad that we're catching up on Georgia Tech a little bit. But no, I mean the fact that Miami and Louisville are 13 and 14 and are all legitimate. Maybe I'll disagree on the Louisville part of it. I think both those teams, right, are still considered potential NCAA tournament teams. So it's a good sign for the conference, right? That there's not not to take a shot at the SEC, right? But there's a lot of people that have already written Missouri off, right? I don't know if there's a single ACC team that's been written off yet, which is pretty great, right? Going into conference play with pretty much the world is your oyster is pretty exciting.
Yeah. It's been really fun start to the year so far. Nick, what are your thoughts on this power rankings? By the way, you're the only one that put Clemson number 1, and yet they made it to number 1 based on the numbers.
I mean, 1 through 4, maybe even 1 through 5. If you're really high on Virginia right now, it could be any combination I could see, honestly. But I put Clemson at 1. Again, just really impressed with good wins against South Carolina, rivalry game. Just really, really impressed with them. I think Micah made a good point. I think top to bottom, we are the most balanced conference. I mean, the world is your oyster. I'm not ruling anybody out of, everyone right now still has an NCAA tournament bid in my mind, except maybe those bottom 2. But right now, I can't even rule those 2 out of Charlotte right now. So, I mean, there's a ton of ball to be played, and I think this conference, top to bottom, is really well more balanced than it was last year. And that's even talking with how good Wake was and how they were just the clear favorites. I mean, it's pretty impressive right now.
Yeah, there's I think 11 weeks between now and Charlotte. 11 weekends. One of those weekends will be for exams for some of the schools. But it's going to be a dogfight weekend in and weekend out. I mean, Pittsburgh has gone from, like I said earlier, a team that will cause you problems to a dark horse all of a sudden. So it's legitimately 14 talented teams deep. This is as good as I've seen it in a long time, if ever. It's really exciting. I actually did move Louisville up a little bit. But Notre Dame, I also had them highest. I put them all the way up at 8. I thought they had a pretty impressive weekend with that lineup. But, yeah, great week. And I think we're learning a lot. And it's fun to see the differences in our power rankings. But
Monty, can we do a quick 30-second exercise? Can you go back to the last slide? Can you just pick every ACC winner? Just don't break them down. Just quickly, rapid fire. Who are the five teams that come out with a positive ACC record after the weekend?
NC State, Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh, Wake Forest, and Virginia.
Nick?
NC State, Virginia Tech, North Carolina, Wake, and Virginia.
Boston College, Virginia Tech, Pitt, Duke, Virginia. I can't wait to either be 5-0 while you guys are well behind me, or I'm going to be so far behind it's over. I'm in trouble this weekend. I'm fighting both of you guys. So, no, it's going to be such a fun weekend. I can't wait. But, Monty, I'll let you get the final words. But
no worries.
I am so upset that I'll be watching more college basketball than college baseball. So everyone that's listening, oh, by the way, Monty, this is my official announcement to you. I will not be able to join us next Monday because that'll be the SoCon men's basketball championship game. So You'll see me on ESPN2 if you want to, see my face. You can just turn on the ESPN2. I'm the MC, so you'll see me somewhere in the background, I'm sure, making a cameo. But unfortunately, my ACC baseball will be a lot of highlights and probably watching the condensed games in my hotel room in Asheville, North Carolina. But I am still super, super excited for this weekend.
Yeah, let's see if we can remember all those predictions for the prediction article or the preview article in which everyone on the ACC team will be having a prediction on these 5 games. And hopefully the 3 of us don't mix up what we said here now with what we say on Thursday.
I wrote it down. I will say I hold the right to do some more research on the Pitt, North Carolina one. That's the only I will say that's the one game I was like, I probably should say North Carolina, but for the fun of it, I'll ride the Gritzburg train.
Yeah. So we have the weekend recap. Most of what we've already talked about on this show broken down on the website. We have the power rankings on the website. We've got bracketology coming from Micah at some point this week. We're also going to have the preview article. Lots of good content. A bunch of us are going to be on site this weekend. As you just heard, Nick and I are going to be at the top 10, at least one of them on Friday night for Nick, and at least two of them for me, between Duke and Wake Forest. A lot of great action coming. I'm sure Grayson might be at the NC State Boston College game, so going to be a great weekend.
What about me? I'm going to be at a game this week too. You're going to pretend like I'm not going to Clemson and Kansas State on Wednesday?
I'm losing my mind. I was thinking next week. I'm sorry. Micah will be at the premier midweek game with Kansas State at Clemson. I messed up my dates, Micah. I was thinking that was next week after the SoCon basketball. And that's why
I get my ACC baseball fix this week, at least on Wednesday.
I was wondering why you were like making gestures over there. My bad.
I'll try to do the YMCA. Just get ready for another fun game at the day at the ballpark. But no, I am so excited. I just want to quickly, Monty. I don't want to plug too much of my stuff, but on fifth quarter ACC, you will see a lot of content. I'm going to be rating. I'm going to be doing the Dave Portnoy food review. Right now, we got some stuff working. There's a chance I might be going to check out the Cajun Cafe in right field if Cole can help me pull that off. So that'll be really cool for those of you that watch Clemson baseball. You know what that group is. It's the cheap seats there at DKS. I'm excited to be able to highlight a lot of that. Shout out to Monty for the SID connection. I am going to be credentialed, so I'll be able to wiggle my way around a little bit more than just a normal ticket will get me. But a lot of our followers, too, will be there. Excited to see Cole in person and couple other guys, Coach Hall, who always engages with us. So there'll be stuff on there. I'm also going to write a ballpark review because the end of the year, I am going to rank 1 through 14. I'm going to power rank the ballpark. So I'm very excited to get it kicked off. And obviously it's a big ACC Big 12 battle with Kansas State coming to town. A team that is really desperate for a top 25 win with how they've started their season.
Yeah. And never apologize for plugging stuff on your podcast. This is a joint podcast between College Baseball Central and the ACC. Just means less on fifth quarter ACC. So you're plugging yourself. Nick, any final thoughts?
Oh, actually, quickly, one more thing. Nick, sorry, before you go. Monty, you have to go to Dioli's. I'm requiring it. If you ever want me to write another article for you ever again, you have to go to Dioli's. I know that's what you're going to say, Nick. I'm beating you to it. You can tell him what to get. I'm just telling Monty that I will not write another article about the ACC unless he goes to Dioli's this weekend.
I did tell you guys weeks ago when I knew this game, I was going to go to at least one game. I think I was going to go at least the Saturday game. I was like, I'm going. I already looked at the menu. I'm thinking the chicken parm. Nick, what's your recommendation?
Yeah, so chicken parm, my personal favorite's the Chicago hot beef. That's really, really good. I mean, if you like fresh rotisserie, rare roast beef, and caramelized onions and spicy peppers, I mean, dipped in au jus sauce, it's really good. So that's my favorite.
And just say yes to any dessert that Nick may offer you. Just say yes.
Anything
There's not a single dessert that can go wrong.
Monty, just say yes. So
absolutely, I'm excited. That was definitely something I'd circled when I first listened to the podcast. When you guys had me guest, I heard the ad in the beginning that Nick does for the for Dioli's, and I was like, let me look up the menu, and I was like, I'm in. So,
but besides that, for those of you that follow my stats that I do per week, first of all, I appreciate the engagement. I know it takes me a while, so I appreciate all the likes and retweets and comments. I enjoy doing them. Right now, the page is not updated. I have all the games up to February 29th. So obviously when the midweeks ended last week, so I don't have any this weekend stats, but hopefully that will come out tomorrow morning. I can do them and tweet them out tomorrow night. And I will be doing a blog, I believe, after the Wake Duke series. So I'll basically just do a whole recap blog on that, since I'll be in attendance for that as well. I haven't written one in a couple of weeks. So, and guys, guess what? Figured out what's wrong with my mic. So instead of obliterating my phone battery on this stream, I will be back on my laptop. So we're thriving and surviving here.
There we go. Also, Jake wanted to apologize. His body needed a break. He was exhausted and couldn't put forth the effort expected in a podcast. So, Jake, hopefully you've had time to recover tonight. We didn't miss you at all.
Why is he tired? He has a personal assistant for the next couple of
I know. I mean, Cinderella is lost the bet, the Clemson, South Carolina bet, and has to be his personal assistant.
Oh,
so,
I just realized Nick doesn't even know what we're talking about. Nick, you need to actually, I don't know if you want to join the College Baseball Central group chat.
That's why I didn't originally invite both of you. You insisted on it, Micah.
I did, and I don't necessarily say I regret it, but I definitely don't.
I try to leave it. I try to leave it at least.
But long story short, the South Carolina troll writer, whatever we want to call him, made a bet with Cole that whoever's team lost the series had to be Jake's personal assistant for a couple days. So I don't know why Jake couldn't be here. If anything, Sin should have been on it. So at least, he could have been filling in for the tired Jake. But
yeah,
that would not have gone well.
Yeah, probably not.
But yep, that's it for us. We'll have this loaded up as a podcast for you guys if you guys are listening on there. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. Maybe Monday, maybe Tuesday if we want to have Micah on. We'll see.
I'm down to do a live show in the Duke press box on Tuesday after the Rider game.
Oh, there you go. All right. Thanks.